Last year, I was working as a pizza delivery boy for some local pizza shop near where I live. The money was awful, of course, but I was trying to make a few extra bucks before college started back up again in the spring. Hoping as the pizza shop closes at midnight, with all the deliveries being stopped at around 11:30, so the drivers can help clean up the shop and get out. One Saturday night, a call came in around 11:45 and asked for a delivery. My boss was about to say, we don't deliver pizzas after 11:30. But the person ordered 8 large pizzas. I wanted someone to drop them off at their house, which was located far away from the shop on the other side of town for that. My boss, being the cheap asshole he was, demanded the order to be made and delivered because 8 large pizzas was a lot of money inside of his pocket. Unfortunately for me, the boss decided that I'd be the one to deliver the pizzas. Of course. I typed the address into my phone and saw that it was almost 30-minute drive just to get to this person's house. Since cooking 8 large pizzas takes a while to make, I was probably going to arrive at the person's house around 1 in the morning, probably. Who wants pizza at 1 in the morning, especially who's awake then? I was a little annoyed that I had to stay so late, but I tried to look on the bright side of things and told myself I was probably going to receive a generous tip. Given the lateness of the hour, I should, really. The amount of pizzas that we ordered and the distance from the shop, about after 35 minutes, the pizzas were finally done, so I put them in my car and set off toward the address. I arrived around 1 o'clock, just like I predicted, and drove my car up to the steep driveway. It was an impressively big house. I sat in my car for a while and took everything around me before getting out. Even though the house looked very nice and the front yard was horrible in condition. We didn't get any snow from where I'm from, so the grass continued growing all year round, and the grass looked like it had been cut for several months, or the entire year for that. That was the first thing that I noticed. Second thing was the fact that this gigantic house located in the middle of nowhere up on this hill. And from where I was sitting in my car, it looked like nobody was home. There were no cars in the driveway. Lights in the house were not on, yet this house ordered 8 large pizzas to be delivered. I was hesitant about getting out of my car, but I finally did and walked to the front door in hopes that this would all be over soon. As I was walking up the sidewalk to the door, I noticed the grass around me was even higher than I originally thought. It must have been neglected for some time now. It was well past my knees and covered this person's front yard. I was about to ring the doorbell when I saw a piece of paper taped to the door. "Dear Pizza Boy, please come in. Do not ring the doorbell. Thank you." That was a strike through for me. Why would I go inside? I had a bad feeling about this house ever since I pulled in, but now I was certain that something fishy was going on. This definitely felt like some kind of trap for me, and even though I don't live in a bad neighborhood, I still don't want to be abducted by someone, especially when I'm working this shitty-ass job as a pizza delivery boy. I obeyed what the note said, and I just rang the doorbell. Anyway, I waited a few minutes, but no one answered. Knocked on the door, then placed my ear closer to the wood, tried to listen for any noise coming from inside the house. Hearing nothing, I just stood there on the person's porch in the middle of the night, with 8 hot pizzas burning my hands. No idea what to do next. I wanted to get back in my car and just tell my boss no one was at the house, but that would really piss him off, and I was probably going to get fired if I came back with 8 pizzas with no money. Even though it wouldn't be my fault, I'm sure that, my boss would have still blamed it on me. I took my hand away from the handle, convincing myself that delivering these pizzas wasn't worth my life. I turned around and was about to walk back to my car when I heard someone say something from inside the house. "Come in!" someone shouted. The voice definitely came from a woman, but she sounded far away, like she was on the opposite side of the house or something. I went back to the door and knocked again. "Come in, please. I'm upstairs," the woman's voice yelled. I eased up a little bit when I heard the voice, but I was still skeptical about the whole thing. The woman said, "I'm upstairs," implying that she was the only one there, which would be weird considering she ordered 8 pizzas. I told myself that I was just being paranoid, but there was a very small nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I was immediately suppressed. I slowly opened the door, making sure that the carrier of pepper spray around my keychain was within reach. The inside of the house was very similar to the condition of the yard, unkempt. There were piles of garbage everywhere, and most of the house just looked like it hadn't been cleaned in a long time. Weeks, maybe months. I kept the front door open just in case I needed to make a quick escape, and then set the pizza down on a table. It was a few feet in front of me. There was a pile of mail stacked up in the center of the table that was spilling over the edge onto the floor. Most lights in the house were off except for one swinging light in the middle of the room. I was currently standing in and one located at the top of the large staircase that was to my right. I heard the voice again. It was coming from the top steps, but I couldn't see anyone. She said, "I'll be down in a minute," she said. Only this time, it didn't sound right. Something was definitely off about her voice. I had noticed it when I was standing outside, but now it was much clearer. I could tell that it wasn't one's voice at all. Well, it was, but it didn't sound natural. It sounded like a man doing an imitation of a woman's voice. Fuck this, I said to myself. I'm out of here. There had been red flags going off ever since I parked my car, but this was the final straw. I left the pizza on the table so they wouldn't trip me up. I had to start running. I turned around and was about to leave through the front door when I stopped dead. Right as I was exiting the house, I saw a shadow figure dart across the sidewalk under the high grass covering the yard. Standing there, I was in the doorway. I could make out the silhouette of something crouching in the grass off to my left, about 25 yards in front of me. It was very, very dark out, so I could barely make out the figure crouching in the yard, but from where I was standing, I could tell that there was something off about it. The thing had a very small head, barely bigger than that of a baby, but the rest of its body looked like it belonged to a full-grown man. Also, I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought that I could see a short, thick tail wagging behind this thing, like a lion stalking its prey. I couldn't see its eyes, but I knew it was looking at me. I was certain. I backed up into the house and closed the door, locking it firmly. Great, I thought. Now I'm stuck in here with the man upstairs pretending to be a woman. I reached into my pocket for my phone, but it wasn't there. Shit, I left my phone in my car. I was completely screwed. But I wasn't just gonna lay down and die. No, I needed to find another exit. The stairs were to my right, so I went down a large hallway, hoping to find a back door or something to make it back to my car somehow. The lights were all through the rest of the house, so I took it slow and steady and frantically searched around with my hand to make sure I didn't trip over a pile of junk lying on the floor. All my senses were turned up to 200%. I heard every little creak in the house, everything, and was trying to navigate through the darkness as quietly as I could. I had no idea who else was in the house with me. I passed many boarded up windows and locked doors, but I was not losing hope. No. I teared through one of those windows if I came to that, but for now I wanted to remain quiet. I made to the end of the hallway with only one door remaining. I twisted the handle and it reluctantly started to turn with a sharp metal-on-metal noise that pierced through the silence of the house. I pushed on the door and it creaked open. There was a noise behind me, like breaking glass. I turned around to find that the light that was shining near the front door was out. "I know you're in here. I know you're in here." The voice boomed from down the hallway, no longer sounding anything like a woman. I went to the new open room in front of me and shut the door. There was no lock, and I didn't have time to find out the light switch, but I didn't need to. Several candles were burning throughout the room. There were wax-forming petals around the floor, overuse. A pentagram was scrawled on the floor, and what I can only imagine was blood. And there were a visceral smell throughout the room that burned my nose and caused my eyes to water. A chair was set in the middle of the pentagram with a pile of something, intestines or something, lying in the seat, leaking blood all over the ground. What the fuck? From behind the door, I could hear footsteps thundering down the hallway at a steady, confident pace, like a man knew I was trapped. I looked around the room and noticed that moonlight was shining in through a window that was looking on the back wall. Unlike all the other windows I passed, this one was not boarded up. I ran towards the window edge before thinking and divided toward freedom, just as I heard the door opening up behind me. Glass shattered around me, and I felt several sharp pains through my body as shards of glass sliced parts of my arm and face. I hit the ground hard, but I was up in a flash from all the adrenaline and fear, and sprinted around to the front of the house, trying my hardest to make it through the tall grass without tripping. I looked back only once to see if I was being chased, but no one was following me. I saw the briefest glimpse of a figure standing behind the window that I broke through, but it didn't look like the man was going to take a chase after me. He just stood there behind the broken window, and I was rounding the corner of the house in my car, now in sight. I could make out his heavy laughter from across the yard. I pulled open my car door and threw myself in with one quick motion. I stopped the car and nearly crashed into a tree as I sped down the driveway. I didn't see that weird creature that was crouching in the grass earlier, but I was driving away. And I looked back in my rearview mirror, and I noticed that the front door of the house was open, even though I locked it before searching for a way out. I made sure that I was far enough from that house before grabbing my phone and calling the police. I told the operator everything in a crazed, mad rush of words, and also mentioned that I was in need of serious medical attention. The operator told me that help was on the way, and not too long after, I could hear the police sirens approaching from the distance. After the police arrived, everything was just one big blur. I don't remember if I passed out or not, and all I could recall small snippets of information like ringing an ambulance and the paramedics trying to stop the bleeding from my cuts, and then being questioned by the police while I was in the hospital. Everything in between was blank. Most of my face made it out to pretty, unscathed because I blocked it using my arms, but ended up getting somewhere in the realm of severe 70 stitches or something like that through the rest of my body and the door, and the doctor said that I was luckily had bled out. I managed to find out that what happened, that the man was trying to abduct me after I was released from the hospital. Apparently, when the police arrived at the house, the man was sitting in his driveway with his hands up in surrender as the house behind him burned down from a fire that he had intentionally started a few months before. The rest of the story I thought on my local news broadcast, as did basically every other person in that town. I was expecting the story to be like something right out of a horror movie. I figured that the man murdered the original owners of the house and then stayed in there for a while, pressing his weird rituals or whatever, while the people he murdered rotted away in the backyard somewhere. What really ended up hearing, though, was even more disturbing than what I originally thought. It was, in fact, that the owners of the house were a really wealthy old couple who currently living in Florida. They used the house as a summer home, and at one point they hadn't been back for a very long time and were not planning on coming back, so they decided to give the house to one of their grandsons while they continued to pay the bills for it. The man was there when I was delivering the pizzas. In fact, the old couple's grandson, so it wasn't someone who just broke in, it was the actual grandson. His name was Stanley Wardell, and had been living in the house all by himself for over 2 years now. All of his family said they lost contact with Stanley about a year ago, but none of them made an effort to try and reconnect with him because Stanley was, the black sheep of the family. On the night he was arrested, he admitted that he killed 3 people over the past 6 months. He was planning to kill me as well that night. 2 of the 3 victims were an unlucky couple that had been visiting family from out of town. The other person was Billy Holmes, a little boy that I remembered had gone missing a few weeks earlier. Holy shit, now it's all coming back. During my statement to the police, I mentioned the creature that I saw hiding in the grass, and also the pentagram that was drawn on the floor on the room with the window where had escaped. but since Stanley burned the house down, nothing that it described was found. As for the creature with the small head and thick tail, the police said that I imagined it out of shock, that whatever I was experiencing at the time. I wanted to believe them, but something inside me knew that they were wrong. And if all this wasn't weird enough, the trial took place after Stanley was arrested. And that's when things really started to get disturbing. Even though Stanley admitted to killing 3 people and was pleading guilty, he stood in front of the courtroom the very first day when the prosecution said that he was not the one that murdered those people, or that he was taking the blame for someone else. At first, the judge couldn't tell if Stanley was trying to confuse the jury or if he really meant it, but either way, question after question was thrown at Stanley to try and figure out who this other person was. Stanley remained quiet, though. All the enemies about to tell the judge that he was never going to say who really did it, and they were never going to catch the real murderer. The judge was prepared to offer a short sentence if Stanley provided proof that someone else committed the murders, but he didn't budge. When asked why the other person wanted to kill those people, Stanley's laughed, and the judge dryly said, "Was it because it was hungry?" The judge put off all of this nonsense Stanley's way, trying to scare the jury, and sentenced them to serve 3 lifetime sentences with no hope of probation. That was the end of it. It still haunts me to this day. Now, after this, though, the last thing that I heard Stanley say, "It will rise again," and the warning was accompanied by a crude, almost maniacal laughing. It scared the shit out of me, and I never, ever decided to deliver pizzas ever again.